All right, everybody. We are live for our latest episode of the Slightly Extreme podcast, where we discuss game design and game dev topics. My co-host, as always, from Nexus Games, please welcome Sharky. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
My allergies just literally started to flare up like 2 minutes before we started, so this should be fun. We'll see how long my voice lasts tonight.
Yeah, mine started flaring up about 15 minutes before, where I just sneezed like 20 times.
Mm-hmm. This is going to be for the week of November 22nd. We are finally starting to enter winter, at least around here. It's actually been below 50 degrees. How about for yourself?
It definitely has not been below 50 degrees. It's been below 70 at points, but definitely not. I think maybe at the latest of night, it might have been below 50.
Mm-mm.
Midnight kind of thing. No, I don't even think it's been that cold.
Well,
I wish it was below 50 like, during the day.
I just wanted so everything dies outside so I can breathe again, allergy wise. Because when it stays hot, it means all the grass and flowers are still going.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, sinuses are real.
Yes, they are. So, let's see what's been going on this week. I turned in the first reviewing of the proofs for book number 3, and it went surprisingly well. I hate to get cocky, but I think I may be getting better at writing because there was like very few edits that they had to make for the proof,
Nice.
and of
But
course I
you'll never
added an
get
extra.
good.
What was that?
I said, but you'll never get good at it.
Mm-hmm. And of course, I'd add an extra like 400 words of descriptions to things as well because I couldn't help myself. I'll just
You're
rewrite the book
adding
again.
layer.
Well, that would be a roguelike, right? I gotta restart and do the whole book again.
I mean, that is kind of writing in general because you got to do draft after draft after draft.
Yeah. But things are going well there. We are entering, the Black Friday super sale season, so a lot of games to pick up. Charg and I have been going through some of the bundles as well, and still waiting for some like my picks to go on sale. The 291 games on my wish list right now.
Yeah. You still got to pick up Dismantled. Just pick it up on a 2-hour trial. Because I guarantee you'll be returning that game. Because I know you're not a big survival guy, but I am. And I'm biased towards the game. And I had to return that right away.
Mm-mm.
So I'm pretty sure you're going to be returning it pretty quickly too. I don't even know if you'll even hit the 15-minute mark.
That'll be a very quick stream.
Well, I mean, you'll have to have other games behind it because it will be like I gave it a full 2 hours. Like I was just waiting for something to happen, but it was all just grind with a very small inventory system. Just imagine, like your average survival game, how you get a belt and a backpack kind of thing.
Yeah.
Just imagine if you got a belt and that was your entire inventory.
Oh, good.
And then imagine that you have to spend a bunch of skill points to add a slot to your belt / backpack kind of thing. And that the only thing you do is go around and hit things to break them apart. And then gather it and bring it back. And then to craft things, you have to go to the fireplace, right? And when you go to the fireplace, it resets all the enemies to respawn.
Oh, good.
So you're just constantly going back and killing the same enemies over and over and over again. And the combat system is so jank. So jank. It's one of those like first time developer combat systems to where like it's really easy to fight any enemy one-on-one, pretty much. But the second it becomes 2-on-1, it becomes basically death incarnate. There's basically no way to live. But if you know the way to cheese it, kind of thing, just by walking backwards, kind of thing, you can literally. I literally like killed like I think like I sit there and kited all the enemies on the map that I could find, and I had like 10 or 15 of them following me, and they were no threat because I was just walking away.
Yeah.
And then it was like, okay, I got enough now. Let me just turn around and walk backwards, kind of thing, and just swing. Up, they're all dead. It is like the cheapest, crappiest, like first time developer kind of combat system. And the whole thing is just grind for the you grind to grind.
Oh, good.
Unlike 7 days where you actually do stuff, you actually build stuff, you actually there's variety of recipes. Oh, and like when you look at like every item in the game, this is both resources and craftables. I think it's something like a 6x6 grid, like 36 items between your ingredients and the items you craft. But I only unlocked like 10 of them through like 2 hours of gameplay. And most of those were resources. It was, like I said, you'll be returning it after 15 minutes. Pretty sure.
All right. We'll have to see on that one. But let's see. Anything happening game news wise this week? I know EA, I think, was hit with a lawsuit or something about loot boxes.
Yeah, I didn't look into the details about that, but yeah, they did definitely get hit by a lawsuit. I think it's a personal lawsuit, though. I think not a government one, but I'm not sure.
Let's see. Nintendo did get into trouble. They Nintendo once again went after another developer, or another one who was doing a mod for Smash Brothers, a tournament. That, trying to find any more news on it, that Nintendo decided to send them a cease and desist.
Oh, is that just their normal kind of thing?
Yeah, I think pretty much. Nintendo is so open to people, working on their games or properties.
I thought you had said Nintendo got in trouble, not Nintendo caused trouble.
Let's see. It's a very weird, again, situation. I think they were doing updates or trying to improve the netcode of one of their titles. And Nintendo said no to that.
Yeah, we can't. We can't have that game getting any better than what it is already.
Well, Nintendo makes it, surely it's perfect, right?
Yeah. Nintendo is perfect.
Just like Blizzard.
Yeah. Yeah, Blizzard is perfect. Perfect with all their China shilling.
Yeah, but again, it's one of those situations where it feels like one of these days we need to actually talk to somebody about the whole idea of the protecting your trademark and whether or not that is as real of a situation as people claim it is.
Well, it definitely is a real situation, and I'm not an expert in this subject, but basically the way it is the way the law is lettered. The law is lettered that you kind of have to go after these people, kind of thing, to a certain extent. But it's to that extent, and it's left in this like gray marginal area kind of thing that will be decided by the court kind of thing. So like if you want to be sure that you're good by the courts, you got to be as harsh as you can, like Nintendo. And if you and you can go as lax as you want to, kind of thing, but there's a certain point where if you have to go to court on it, you will be in trouble. Kind of thing. And all of that is gray area from my understanding.
Yeah. But like this just seems like Nintendo being stupid again. Because looking up the news piece, they basically had to use this mod in order. Notification of this stream you never heard about this channel before? Oh, that's unusual.
That's
Usually
weird.
nobody ever hears about this stream because YouTube never publicizes it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there we go.
Now they're apparently sending notification to people who don't even know about it.
Thank you, YouTube. One of these
Yeah.
days I'll wake up and I'll be streamed on PewDiePie's channel, right?
Yeah, I mean, did they get your channel confused with PewDiePie's or something?
Maybe.
Actually, no. YouTube doesn't like PewDiePie anymore, do they? Yeah. Who do they like now?
You're asking the wrong person for that question.
I don't remember. I don't know who YouTube likes anymore. But they're probably confusing your stream for that.
Yeah.
Whoever that is.
Yeah, so the case of what's happening is that this tournament, the Big House, are going to run a fighting game tournament including Smash Brothers Melee, Smash Brothers Ultimate. And obviously because of the pandemic, they can't really do things in person. So they used the emulation, the Dolphin emulator, and a mod known as Slippy, according to, I think it's a Kotaku piece, that allows them to have online play in, Smash Brothers, what was it? Smash Brothers Melee. I think that was the GameCube one.
Mm-hmm.
And Nintendo said, we don't want you to do that, and then they issue a cease and desist order. And again, the problem with this is that this just looks horrible for Nintendo.
They're issuing a cease and desist order to who?
The organizers of the tournament.
I'm pretty sure they have no right to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure that is way outside of the legal trademark thing, because I'm pretty sure you cannot control anybody from playing your game or making content with it. I mean, they certainly tried on YouTube, but they ended up losing there very badly. And if that is what this is, then that's a completely other case.
Yeah.
Because
and again,
that's not protecting their trademark.
And again, it's not like they're doing this because they're trying to steal stuff from Nintendo. They're doing it out of the necessity of the pandemic. Because what's the alternative? How do you run a tournament for a fighting game if you can't do it in person and you can't do it online?
Yeah.
It's kind of like between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah. It's like you're forced to cancel it, and now people have less entertainment to watch.
And means less publicity for Nintendo again.
Yep. Although they're getting plenty of publicity from this, I'm
just
sure.
Just the wrong kind.
Yeah.
Again, Nintendo needs to get good at what's going on in the world, I think.
Yeah. I hope whoever's running that tournament fights against this. And hopefully Nintendo gets what's coming to them.
Yeah, again, this is just Nintendo punching themselves in the face right here in terms of PR.
Yeah, because, if this goes to the court of public opinion, everybody's going to be pissed at Nintendo. Yeah. And there's probably already a ton of videos being made right now on YouTube, shouting about this, but it's going to get even worse if it goes farther. If they fight, if it gets fought against. In which case, things are going to get even worse for them. And, if it ever goes to court, the judge is pretty much going to throw it out really easily. Yeah. And, the tournament holders can run a, GoFundMe and everything. They'll get more than enough money to fight it.
Especially from the FGC.
Yeah, and they'll win very easily. They'll have extra money to throw an even bigger tournament. And Nintendo will eat a lot of mud.
And it's definitely one of those issues where I guess this kind of brings an interesting question. I want to ask you this, and I want to ask the audience watching this live recorded. We just obviously the PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, whatever it's called, are out. Like we are officially in a new console generation. When Nintendo decides to play catch up with whatever they're going to do next, Switch 2, Switch U, whatever we want to say, do you think they're going to take the note and actually, catch up in terms of online play and online functionality? Or do you think they're going to still hold down, kind of be obstinate in this regard?
Probably obstinate.
Mm-hmm.
Because I seriously doubt they've learned their lesson, because looking at the Switch, it sure doesn't look that way.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'll be slightly better than the Switches online. But it'll be they'll probably drop like a few pieces of their jank, make the connection just slightly better kind of thing, and then I'll add like 3 more new pieces of jank in there. Because I mean that's what Nintendo does. They add in new jank every generation. Because they're a toy company first, although they were technically running a Love Motel before that.
And
so I guess that means they're a
cards.
Love Motel first, and then a toy company second, and then a video game company third. Even though the only thing they sell is right now that is arguably profitable is video games. But that's like third on the list.
The other bit of news this week that we have to mention, of course, is that the Game Awards revealed their nominees this year. And how many aneurysms did you get from reading that list?
0, because I did not read that list. I assumed that, like Call of Duty 16 got the best RPG of the year, and the best visual novel of the year, and the best adventure game of the year, and
best JRPG.
The best JRPG of the year, the best beat 'em up of the year, and the best side-scrolling shooter of the year.
But that would imply that there was a best side-scrolling shooter category, and there wasn't.
Oh.
And it's definitely very cringy for somebody like me to read what they consider to be the best games. So their Game of the Year noms are Doom Eternal, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Shark's favorite game, Ghost of Tsushima, Hades, Animal Crossing, and The Last of Us 2. I still have no desire to play The Last of Us 2.
Yeah, that's almost like the list of the worst games of the year. Especially the Final Fantasy VII Remake. Oh my god. Which we'll be talking about Final Fantasy VII later when we get into our topic, because that's definitely, pretty much my favorite game of all time that I have played so many thousands of times. The remake, on the other hand, I wish it never existed. I wish Thanos could come around and snap that game out of existence.
Let's see, there's best game direction, which I have no idea what that even means. Like, how do you rate a game's direction?
See, if it was going this way on the sales chart, an upwards position, that is the direction that is best. The best direction.
Right? Well, you're going like this. That Final Fantasy VII is up for best narrative as well.
I mean, if it was original, yeah. The remake, no.
Best score music, best audio design, best performance. Games for impact. That is just a very weird category.
To Ryu's question, if I was stuck on a desert island, I could only play Final Fantasy VII Remake or Goat Simulator, I would play Goat Simulator. 100%, 1,000%.
And then
actually, what I would play is get the heck off of this dang island.
And best ongoing game. That one just seems very weird to me.
Like, is it Hearthstone?
Could be Apex Legends, Destiny 2, Call of Duty, Fortnite, or No Man's Sky.
Oh yeah, Apex Legends for the win right there, because that game's amazing. It's never had any problems, It's just the most beautiful game ever that that has ever, been, having no problems at all or anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's
And
nothing wrong with that game.
and Destiny is such a very weird thing because every time I hear news about it, it sounds horrible to play. Like they keep talking about, excuse me, removing content, just having a horrible time in their end game.
I've heard lots of good things about it, but I've never been into it, never tried it.
And Among Us is up for best mobile game because Among Us came out this year, right?
Yeah. Among Us came out this year. It wasn't 2 or 3 years ago that it felt really hard. It came out this year, so it's the best mobile game of this year.
Mm-hmm. Wait, what's different from all the other games that we have attacked Ryu? What makes Apex Legends special? Best VR, Innovation Accessibility, Best Action Game. Half-Life Alyx is up for Best Action Game, as well as Doom Eternal. Because Doom Eternal is just like Streets of Rage 4, which is just like Nioh 2.
Mm-hmm. Which is just like Cyberpunk 2077.
Which is just like the Disgaea.
Mm-hmm. Which is just like the Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Also, what's the difference between Best Action and Best Action Adventure? For the best action adventure game combining combat with traversal and puzzle solving? What? My head's starting to hurt.
I think they're talking about Legend of Zelda there.
Mm-hmm. I'm surprised Call of Duty wasn't up for best fighting game.
I mean, it is the best fighting game. As well as the best visual novel.
Mm-hmm. And sim and strategy are nowhere close together. I don't know why they're being lumped together like that. Because Crusader Kings 3 is just like Microsoft Flight Simulator.
Mm-hmm.
And
they wanted to give Loot Box Simulator the prize.
Mm-hmm.
So they had to lump them both together.
And, I was not up for Content Creator of the Year, I'm afraid.
Which one?
Content Creator of the Year.
I
have no idea who any of these people are. And one of the things that drove me a little crazy is when they have Best Debut Game, and they have Carrion on the list, but Carrion is not the debut game. The developers that made Butcher originally. And
it's their debut on the award show.
Mm-hmm. And the thing that just really annoys me is that there's 6 different awards for esports related stuff. And again, there's a discussion to be had about, the various aspects of the game industry. I don't associate, if you're on a video game award, that esports is a part of that. I feel like esports could be its own separate thing at this point.
Yeah, it's esports is not a video game award.
Mm-hmm.
Esports is esports.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect Hades to be up for an award for the best esport game or be anything associated to it.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like, Spalding is up for the best football team. They make footballs. They don't play football.
Mm-hmm.
They have a commonality link, but they are nothing similar to each other. A manufacturing plant that makes footballs has nothing to do with actually playing football.
Yeah.
Besides supplying footballs.
And again, there's one of these days we should have an actual sit-down talk about what it means to celebrate the video game industry. That could very well be a roundtable topic, because I would love to get Tomo's thoughts on this as well. Tomo and Jack. That the Video Game Awards doesn't seem like it celebrates video games.
Because it doesn't.
Yeah,
it celebrates whatever motives the people who run it have.
Which is actually a really good segue for when we get to our main topic later about motivating people.
Yeah.
But stuff like best content creator, best esports, that doesn't really mean anything to the people who make video games. Now, I could see it was called, the Gamer
Wait,
Awards. That would be a different story.
yeah. If it's a gamer awards, there doesn't need to be any video games in there.
Exactly.
And it needs to be like esports and content creators.
Yeah.
And if it's a video game awards, it needs to be video games, not content creators, not
Mm-hmm.
esports players.
I'm sure they'll have at least 10 different celebrities giving awards.
Which probably all of which have never played a video game in their life.
Oh, I'm sure they're really big into Candy Crush, or they play Madden every year.
Quite possibly.
Alright, but with that, Slam, let's get to some of the games that are coming out this week, because this time Shark has given me... if I do that, Jeff will probably sue me, right? But we may do something. We'll probably have to have some kind of reaction. But let me switch over down here.
We could do minimize this small version of the game, like where the Safe Way to Stream podcast logo is, and then you and I can rant about it live.
There we go. Perfect.
Keep the volume basically down to nothing, so that, or maybe just mute the volume for the stream and just have it where only you and I can hear it.
Yeah.
And just strictly they hear us ranting about it.
Mm-hmm. All right, but speaking about rants, let's look at some of the games that are coming out this week. So the first one is Samurai Zero, which apparently it's called Samurai Zero Go. Oh, wait. Samurai Zero, the hyphen is not right.
I gotta get mine fixed.
Let's see.
There we go.
I do like this description. Tests that will make you spend more than 1 hour in the hope of a victorious outcome. Because I won't play something that will take hours to play.
Oh, yeah.
Feature of game. Hardcore. Beautiful pixel art. Retro TV style. And variety of mechanics.
I have to say that, for one feature, that's like a lot of one features.
Mm-hmm.
There's no S at the end of feature.
And the scan lines on that TV are starting to hurt my eyes here.
Well, what are you talking about? That is the most beautiful cross grid I have ever seen. Because it's and it has a slight distortion to it, and that's the kind of things that makes video games better, right?
Oh, yes.
Just having a grid overlay with just distorted,
that
distorted art with a grid overlay in the art makes art look so much better.
If you look at the fourth screenshot for a second, I couldn't tell what that enemy was. I thought it was like some kind of like giant like coyote or like a kangaroo enemy. It's really just three birds really close together. It's a Rorschach test.
It needs, I think that ninja star looking thing right there, it's actually a stone.
Okay.
And see, down there is a bush.
Mm-hmm.
So you have the stone, the birds, and the bush, right?
Let's see.
I hope you guys put that together.
Alright, but with that, the next game is Angry Fugu. And this one looks like it's going to be an amazing platformer.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, Fugu is just awesome. Like if you just, go to the, last two screenshots and go back and forth between them and look at the...
Yeah.
Just barely any movement there between
them. This game can be played by any age category, so it's fun for, I guess, 0 to 1 million.
Yep.
It will not be very key features. There's a 2D platform. Just platforms. And it's a logical jumping game. Will it be an illogical jumping game?
Well, number one, it's only one platform. It's
Mm-hmm.
only one 2D platform. Rest of the platforms are 3D or they don't exist. Or maybe they're 1D or maybe they're fifth dimensional.
Could you look at the third screenshot and what is the perspective of that background right now? Like, you can see like the barely drawn tools on the left hand side, but what's like on the right hand side in that background? Is this a
So
door?
it's a wallpaper or
Mm,
something. Maybe they just dug through to the prehistoric era where they had tools and whatnot.
mm.
And the tools were like preserved in with the bones, many thousands of years ago in the ages of dinosaurs.
And to Ryu's comment, it's because people just automatically try to put everything they've ever seen in a retro game into modern retro titles, without understanding why things are in there.
Yeah, I mean, like the game I played last week that I just bought, that just came out a week ago, kind of thing. That's a retro game because it's a week old at that point. Like games are old after a week,
All right,
but
so
it's a
our
modern retro game because it was made this year.
next game sounds suspiciously like the other horror game that we looked at last week, but I think it's a different game. Maybe.
It's blocked the game with a tinge of red.
It's a psychological horror for one person, so I can't stream it because only one person can play it.
Yep, it's just one person.
The paranormal is sure to scare you. We advise you to get ready before you start playing. How do you get ready?
Well, see, first thing you do is you fill yourself full of liquids, right? So this way, when you get scared, you get the everything scared out of you.
Mm-hmm.
I can't say it because YouTube's going to probably demonetize us.
Mm-hmm. I need to prepare my YouTuber faces.
Yes, you need to prepare that. As
This
well as your
game.
YouTube reaction. Just,
Mm-hmm.
just get ready for it.
So this game has Unreal Immersion. It has game mechanics. The game has game mechanics.
Wait, it has Unreal Immersion. That means this was made in the Unreal Engine, right?
Yeah. You can interact with almost every item you see. The surroundings will not make you bored. Okay.
But if it was Unreal, then that means it's not real. This is all fake.
It's a simulation.
It's all imaginary.
And this last line, this AI thing, I know the game we looked at last week had it. So, now I'm not sure if this is the same game or just the developer making another title.
You gotta like what they said. We are not going to praise our artificial intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
Just say that it is present and it will surely scare you.
There we go.
It's like I'm not going to say anything about me being a shark, but I've swum around, have a fin, bite, a few things, tend to thing, I look like a shark kind of thing, and surely you would think I was a shark kind of thing. That's basically what that sentence is.
Yeah. Even to Thomas's point again, like what made Stardew Valley work was he wanted to start with a Harvest Moon clone, but then he went above and beyond what Harvest Moon was.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see.
And plus, that was a very rare situation to where there was basically no game like Harvest Moon on all of PC, and Harvest Moon, I don't even think had come out on consoles and whatnot in a very long time.
Mm-hmm. So, our next game gets on the list for its name. It's Dr. Bunny. Apparently, you are Dr. Bunny. And
do you meet Professor Bunny while you're in here?
I don't know. I'm still not sure like what this actual gameplay is. Wait. What? Apparently you have the Necronomicon because you can always revive the bunny with the great power of the artifact. But remember that you have to pay for everything. Oh, that just got dark really fast.
If you look at the last screenshot, you know what that reminds me of?
Hmm?
Reminds me of The Sims. When you take them and put them in the water, and then you pull out the ladder because there's no ladder in there anywhere. That bunny's going to drown.
Yeah, but then you can bring them back to life.
Yeah.
Is like the sequel to this game, you have to stop the zombie apocalypse because you revived everybody that you killed?
Probably. The bunny apocalypse.
There we go.
The Bunopolis.
There we go. You should make that game now.
Oh, I'm already on it. It's already halfway made.
Features 3 hospitals, reputation, medical outfit, and patient's revival. That describes this game perfectly.
Oh, yeah.
Hmm.
And if you scroll down and look at the GIF,
yeah,
down there at the bottom, it says examine the patient on the wall.
Yeah.
It's like, why would you paint that on your wall?
Mm-hmm.
It's like a reminder to doctors, examine your patients.
Nah, you don't need to do that. And then this next game gets on, again, for its name, Bob Help Them. It's a timer-based game, which I have no idea what that means. Where your goal...
They're really missing out on the Josh market. It should be Josh Help Them.
I thought it should be Josh Get Good.
Well, that's the sequel.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll never happen.
35 different levels, 6 NPCs, and 105 stars to get. What really has me confused is, why is, like, in every one of his idle animations or idle states, his arms are up in the air?
Well, he's got to throw his arms up like he just doesn't care.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. This next one maybe has potential. This is Gravifier.
Gravifier?
Yeah. The story makes...
confused with Gravy Fire.
Is that the Thanksgiving themed version?
Yes, that is the Thanksgiving version.
So it's about gravity control, 50 different levels, many different mechanics. I mean, I like the idea of the whole gravity control, but I think part of my problem with this game is that none of these thumbnails are really showing me what I'm doing or what's the actual goal.
Like, it has potential, but it also has potential to just be basically a gravity simulator.
Mm-hmm.
With some art behind it. And that's what I'm leaning towards right now.
Mm-hmm.
Follow the screenshots.
Yeah. And that's certainly true, Ryu. Again, puzzle games are very hard to market.
And also the description with the features of having, gravity control, a bunch of levels, and different mechanics, and bright graphics. Like, that seems...
Mm-hmm.
That seems like it doesn't have much of anything in it. Besides, like, gravity control gets this whole entire thing, but many different mechanics. I mean, like, that seems like, if you move this, if you use gravity on this switch, it'll flip it. If you use gravity on this thing, it'll activate it. If you use gravity on this, it'll activate. Kind of thing. Not actually different mechanics, just like more gravity stuff, gravity affected things rather than... That's what that sounds like. In the 50 mind-bending levels, that seems like just, more levels is better.
Mm-hmm.
And the bright pixel graphics, I mean...
it's a little debatable, I think, from these screenshots.
I mean, they're definitely bright, except for the blackness. But, like, when they only have 4 features like that, and they're listed in such a way, that seems like a very, very empty, hollow game.
Yeah. So this next one, it sounds like there could be potential here, but I'm also seeing some red flags. And that is Android Hunter A. I guess the sequel will be Android Hunter B.
For a second there, I thought it was Android Hunter.
So, like, some of these thumbnails look decent, and then some just look very like low quality to me.
Looks a lot like assets, but
Yeah,
I can almost guarantee you they're not assets.
yeah, like
But they have the
that.
cheap asset feel to them, even
Yeah,
though they're not assets.
yeah.
Well, some of them probably are
Huh.
assets, but not. I don't think all of them are. I don't think the characters
Plane
are,
number 10.
and the
Yeah,
characters are arguably one of the cheapest looking parts to it.
yeah, and again, like as Clark is saying in chat, yeah, this looks very similar to Mega Man.
Oh, there's no resemblance to Mega Man in here. What are you talking about?
Mm-hmm.
There is absolutely none. I mean, this looks nothing like Mega Man. Mega Man is blue.
Mm-hmm. Also, the game is hurting my game dev sense. Hundreds of customization options. Customize your character, unlockable accessories, costumes, masks, and more. That's not customization. That's personalization.
Well, you're gonna customize your personalization.
There we go. Is that safely extreme?
I think that's more extremely basic.
Mm-hmm. Launch into a retro-inspired side-scrolling shooter, sharpening the edge of action platforming?
Wait, this is a side-scrolling shooter?
No. It's a Call of Duty clone.
Well, Call of Duty is side-scrolling shooter,
Mm-hmm.
so that means this one is too.
How do you sharpen the edge of action platforming?
But see, you take the action platforming, right? You flatten it down into a piece of metal, right? And then you take a whetstone to it and you just rub it against the side, right? And that's how you sharpen.
Also, for a side-scrolling platformer, why are there two thumbnails? It looks like he's driving a motorcycle. That's not side-scrolling.
I mean, it's frontwards side scrolling.
Hmm.
It's scrolling the front of you.
There we go.
Like a first person, shooter. That's a side scrolling game, right?
Mm-hmm.
A
At least,
side-scrolling shooter.
at least they got the genre right. It is an action game. I was surprised they didn't put indie RPG, casual, and simulator in there.
I mean, it is all those things.
Mm-hmm.
It's also a visual novel.
Yeah. Well, there's cutscenes, so that will be visual.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of, one game that I was going to include but I decided not to. They call it a visual novel, but there are no screenshots to the game. It's a visual novel minus the visual.
Yeah, I think you need to include that one.
If I can find it again. Alright.
Unvisual visual novel.
So it'd be some kind of novel.
Right there. The visual novel that you can't visually see.
There you go. So this next one, I don't know. I mean, it has a really interesting aesthetic, but this whole description just I think is going to push people away. It's a short horror adventure with casual point-and-click puzzles. Playtime is about 5 minutes. No text, while there's a giant title screen right there. All the graphics and animations are handmade from plasticine.
Playtime is about 5 minutes. That sounds like a fantastic game that I'd like to spend 3 hours playing.
Speedrun it in 1 minute.
Could probably speedrun in 30 seconds.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I like it has that, very strong aesthetic look to it, but doesn't look like there's anything else to it.
I don't like the aesthetics either.
It kind of gives off that claymation, what was it? The Neverhood kind of look to me.
It looks more like cheap claymation to me.
Yeah.
like stuff that was like reject from Gumby. Because I mean, like, look at the last one, with those buildings, like I mean, like, it's like a 5-year-old could make that stuff. They just take a block, take a thing of Play-Doh, and just put their finger in it, 3 fingers in it 3 times, and they have like the side of a building done.
Mm-hmm. There we go.
It looks very, very low effort.
Well, it's only 5 minutes of gameplay.
And that's probably about 5 minutes too long. Probably about 10 minutes too long.
Negative time.
Screenshots. Yeah.
All right, this next one, I want to like this, but I run into that same problem that a lot of city builder style games have, is that I'm not seeing the hook. You can build in a city builder. Computer game characters don't have real feelings or minds. Aw. That means our townspeople hate us. Mm-hmm.
Wait, we're crossing too much into the real world with this one.
Uh-huh. You can fight. You can cast spells. What the heck is that final GIF supposed to be?
Taking a photo of everybody jumping up. Maybe that's a victory. Yay, we won! Snap. Preserved forever, you will know that you beat this map.
I mean, like I always say with like Thorn around, that I want to see somebody do like an elevated take off of Hinterland. And I don't know. Could be something interesting. I think I want to put in for it. But again, I'm not seeing. Again, this will get to our main topic. What's the motivation to play this game?
Yep. Gonna be struggling to find that, I think.
Now, we do have one game that does have a lot of potential. We have Demon Turf Trials. This is from the developer of. I know they did another game that we played. We brought this up on our. I think when we were playing this, or showing it off on the Indie Spotlight. Let me see. I can find it really fast. No, the developer of this worked on a game that. Oh yeah, this is from the Slimezen developer, and that was a very challenging 2D platformer. I do like the IGN quote: "Demon Turf is the next big indie 3D platformer," because they were really good on that horror game. They said it was the scariest horror game of all time, and it was a horrible game.
Mm-hmm. So is that a red flag?
Yeah. If IGN likes your game, it's a red flag.
Yeah.
Let's see. Could be interesting. And again, if it's from the developer of Slimezen, he knows how to do difficulty and platforming. But, of course, the caveat is that 2D platforming and 3D platforming are two different things.
Well, I mean, they're not two different things. They're more like 1.5 different things, because you have the 2 versus the 3. 3 is 1.5 of 2, so it's 1.5 different things. Right?
Mm-hmm. But seriously, I brought this up in my book on platformers, that you have to approach 3D platforming differently than 2D. You can't really do the same tricks because the camera and the designs don't really allow for it. But,
And regular platformers are not just a single jump and that's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll have to see.
Mm-hmm.
So this next game, we have another horror game, Please Wake Up. It is an original horror game that will hack your brain. Bum bum bum.
I mean, the fact that it's original really, really sells me on this game, because, like, I figured this was a clone.
Mm-hmm. I like the second sentence. Most horror games present the player with a hypothetical scare, oftentimes of creatures or gore. But Please Wake Up uses psychological techniques and illusions to present many horrifying truths about the nature of memory, perception, and reality. It has a simple and accessible, yet engaging, gameplay. You can't trust what you're seeing.
Yeah, I would never think that in a video game. I figured everything that was in a video game I would 100% trust. If I saw people, 15 people getting murdered, I'd go get my shotgun, go out into the real world, and just have at it, right? Because I could trust everything that's in a video game.
You can't double jump in real life?
Oh, you can.
Ah.
You can. See, that's what they call parkour.
Oh, good.
There's a jump. Once you get good enough at parkour, you're able to double jump.
Sweet.
And even triple jump and infinite jump.
And so the final game on my list, I think we may have looked at this one before, but I'm not sure, is I Have Lived. And this is a game that I have no idea what this game is about, other than living. Experience journey with varying gameplay controls and features. Because you want to change your controls every level. Like, the game just randomly rebind your keys each time you go to a new stage.
Now that is a new level of masterpiece right there. You have to, every level, like, the keys rebind, and you can't change them, kind of thing. So, like, in the first level, you can jump with, X. In the next level, you use the Y key, and the next, when you get to the final boss kind of thing, you got to use the start button to jump.
Mm-hmm.
Because you got to get good. and for your directional buttons, you have to use the actual buttons. WX, your 4 buttons, your X, Y, Z, No, wait. Maybe what it is your trigger. No. 2 trigger buttons and your X and the O button are your up, down, left, right.
And again, like, this is one of the issues I see some indie developers do, is that they try to think so far outside the box that what they have just doesn't seem all that engaging. Because I'm looking at these screenshots, I don't know what's going on in this game. I see space time. You go into space.
But for how long?
I don't know. And the problem, and again, I think this is also a good segue as we're going to switch to our main topic now. What's going to get somebody to check out this game? And secondly, what's going to get them to keep playing a game that looks like this?
I don't think anything.
And like we've said, like, you can go, outside the norm. You do your own thing, but you still have to present an attractive package. I think we've said this before, that you need to know the rules before you break them. And many developers just break the rules and then wonder why nobody wants to play their game.
Because they're rebels. They got to break all the rules.
Mm-hmm. But
they can't be oppressed.
Let's get to our main topic. I think that's a really good segue. We're talking about motivation. And this is not the same as replay value. As in, we're going to come back to a game because it's a roguelike, because, there's variance. What we're trying to talk about for today is what gets somebody through your game? What's going to keep them playing from start to finish? And it's a question that sounds, I think, a lot easier to answer than it really is.
Yeah, it's not an easy answer, and I'm pretty sure even if we do come up with an answer, like, I'm sure that the answer will be, it depends.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm sure there's many possibilities for that answer.
Yep. And for my thumbnail that I included here, I put on there games like The Last of Us, Bloodborne, Fortnite. Because we did a short series with Silas, who's working on... I forget the name of his game. kind of shooter, third-person shooter MOBA. Anyone remember that game was?
I don't remember.
Revan, thank you for it. And we did a series talking about motivation. We were looking at individual games to find what keeps people motivated. And some of the major points that we look at, stuff like storytelling or story, the gameplay itself. We can also talk about things from an exploration standpoint as well as from a competitive standpoint. So there are aspects, like very broadly, that get people to play through a game. But the challenge is that every game is different, and every person is different in terms of what motivates them. Like, for myself, as we all know, I'm not really motivated by storytelling in games. Your game having an amazing story and being awful to control, I'm not going to play that game for long. But there are plenty of people who will play narrative-driven games if the gameplay is just so-so or middling, if the story is engaging enough. Like that A Plague's Tale Innocence game that we looked at a few weeks ago.
Mm-hmm. I didn't find that story in that particularly good either.
Yeah.
But
and of course, stuff like The Last of Us 2, which I know a lot of people are, praising the game for its story and its characterizations.
Yeah, also a case where I didn't find the story very interesting.
Yeah, me neither. I haven't played it yet. Yeah, every RPG. Thank you, Rio.
There's a lot of RPGs that have really good stories. Not all of them, though.
Mm-hmm. Like, I'm playing a Labyrinth of Refrain again, and the story is very weird, but the gameplay, as per, Nice or Nipponichi style, is engaging on that respect. And I was telling Shark about this, that due to how the items work in that game, I think I broke the RPG trinity there. That my tank is my glass cannon, my glass cannon is my tank, and my archer is my mage. I broke all the rules there.
Yeah. Like, I know, like, Disgaea has really good story in some of their games. Like, 1 and 4 have really good stories. They're definitely weird stories kind of thing, but they're really good. That's sort of NIS in a, nutshell weird.
Mm-hmm. And, excuse me, when we look at what is motivating to somebody, again, this kind of gets at the heart for a developer as to what is their game about. What is your core gameplay going to be? And it's a tough answer, or a tough question for a lot of people to answer. Because we've seen developers who say, well, I want people to enjoy my gameplay. And then they'll start their game with a 20-minute exposition cutscene. Or some people say, I want people to enjoy my story. And then the second you start playing the game, it's just awkward to control or manipulate.
Yeah. I think when it comes to games overall, you need to generally try to, basically the way I think of it is, as a developer, and when I say a developer, I mean a team of developers, whether that's, 1 member or 15, which basically you never get this with 1, which is the reason why a lot of 1 solo developers fail. And that's every category you need to have a B or better ranked skill kind of thing. You need to be B or better at programming. You need to be B or better at art. You need to be B or better at writing. You need to be B or better at, music. You need to be B or better at marketing. You need to be B or better in every field, which, pretty much nobody is. And that's the reason why you want a team kind of thing. So that, because if you don't have somebody on your team that is B or better in one area, your game in that area is going to suck. And it's going to be a, a downward effect for your game. So you need to have good in every area, Now then you can focus on more one area or the other, like everything is B or better, but this area is like triple S kind of thing.
Yeah. And
like, I'm a triple S writer or whatever.
And again, like that describes a lot of indie games, in a nutshell, that they'll have one really solid aspect to their game, and then the rest may be, C, C minus, D plus tier. And I know that sounds very insulting, but the problem is, as we've said, is that people these days have options. I have over 2,500 games on my Steam library. I don't need to play your game in order to get to the good stuff. And this is something that developers need to understand. Why we've said that the bar of quality has gone up so much over the last decade.
Like many games that came out that were wild successes could not even imagine, could not even think about succeeding today.
Oh, yes.
Like if FTL came out today instead of many, many years ago, it would fail. It's an amazing game.
Nuclear Throne. Rami Ismail has said that many times, and we said when we did that interview that if Nuclear Throne came out today and not 8 or 9 years ago whenever it was released, it probably would have failed.
Braid.
Oh yeah, and Braid may have gone by on the aesthetic as well, but maybe not as well, especially look at some of the other games.
Well, the mechanically it couldn't either because like it just had it's just the basic platforming with the time travel mechanic.
Mm-hmm. And this also goes back to when we talked about how achievements can be used to track metrics like this. That you can have a game that has a lot of people who bought it, a lot of people are talking about it, yet is horrible to keep people invested in playing it. That game I played last night, the Jump Scare Wick, as an example, that this was a game I know YouTubers, they went crazy over this game. I'm sure there's dozens of YouTuber reaction videos of it out there. And when I want to look up the
everyone knows any game that a YouTuber plays is instantly like the best indie game ever, right?
Mm-hmm. Like Goat Simulator.
Yeah.
Let me see.
Untitled Goose Game.
Actually, it did not do as well as I thought. It only has 364 reviews.
How many of those are negative?
And the point about this is that you can... here's a perfect example. Celeste. How many accolades and praise did Celeste get for everything that it did? It has over 24,000 reviews on Steam. So it succeeded. I think it's safe to say that is an example of an indie game success, or just a game success. However, when we look at the Steam or the achievement page, less than 10% of the people actually finished Celeste. And if we track these achievements, you can see a very noticeable decline as the game goes forward. So Celeste as a title was terrible at motivating people to play it, which is very weird considering that the whole game is about finding motivation to do something.
Well, everybody knows that Celeste is like the most accessible game that is the easiest all the way to get to the end, right? Why did they not get like nearly 100% to the end? Because they were super accessible, right?
And that is the point. Like, I know you're being a little sarcastic there, but it's a really good question because people were arguing with me that Celeste wasn't a good game because it's so accessible. Well, if it's so accessible, why did 6.7%, or I'm sorry, 6.6% of the people actually beat the game? We're not even talking about, all the seaside challenges and all that. And this is, I think, one of those points you have to understand, that there's more to this than just simply having options. Because, like I said, people were arguing with me that Celeste is such an accessible game, it's an amazing title and all that. So why did so many people stop playing? Somebody told me, well, I felt like I got my fill of the game before I got to the end. And it's a very weird answer, but it's something that I understand. Because when it comes to motivating people to play these games, most people aren't going to play a game 100%. There's literally not enough time these days for some of us to do that. I mean, I rarely do 100% runs of games unless there's something that I really, really love or really, really masochistic about, like with Spelunky 2. But for most people, they're going to play the game, and the second, John beat me to this, the second they hit a wall, even if it's, like a foot-high wall that you have to, just like step over, they're going to stop playing it. The puzzle genre is very infamous for this. That how many people watching this right now who play puzzle games got to a really hard puzzle they couldn't solve immediately, and they just quit the game and never went back.
Yeah, it's difficulty spikes definitely do that. But at the same time, difficulty spikes in a boss kind of thing, as long as it's not, I think, extremely hard. It's just, oh, I need to get a little bit better kind of thing, not just this major like wall in front of you. You're wanting to overcome that challenge, whether but like when it's a difficulty spike, as in just here's this random spot. Good
now
luck solving it. No potential solutions kind of thing, other than just play the game for a long time to get better at it. That's when you really hit that wall kind of thing.
And it's that division that makes whenever we talk about Souls-like such a very frustrating topic, because there are people who will say Dark Souls is perfect because there's no difficulty settings and it's all about, brutally killing yourself to play that game. Then there are people who say Dark Souls is horrible because there aren't any difficulty settings and you're forced to brutally kill yourself to play that game. And again,
so
this goes
agree on everything but the difficulty settings.
Yeah. And this goes back to this topic about motivation, because people are motivated by different reasons to play a game. And it's very tough I would say it's borderline impossible to make a game that would appeal to everybody.
I mean, all you have to do is do what EA does. EA makes a game for everybody, fills it with 5 billion loot boxes, and everybody plays it, right?
Yeah. So, like with something like with Dark Souls, for instance, more people or more of the fan base beat Dark Souls than they did Celeste. So, obviously, that must mean Celeste or Dark Souls is more accessible than Celeste.
And I would agree with that 100% because there's no accessibility in Celeste.
None whatsoever.
There's just a game genie, a cheat mode. And a cheat mode is not accessibility
or approachability.
Yeah.
And that is, I think that's a really good point to touch on. That one of the things that I really try to focus on when I look at games is how approachable it is. Because approachability and accessibility are two separate things. People will try and conflate this. And again, this goes back to the difficulty settings argument. But the difference is that accessibility is about putting features in your game that allow people with issues outside the game to be able to play it. So, colorblind mode, subtitles, repetitive, not having very strenuous QTEs for people who have arthritis or repetitive stress issues, etc. Like, that stuff should be standard, That's not something you should, you should not pride your game on the fact that it causes people to vomit because it induces motion sickness or seizures. But
I mean, you could.
Some people would probably love it.
The masochists would.
Yeah. Approachability is about putting things in your game that make it easier to play it and remove issues that are inside the game that are causing people to bounce off of it. So this is stuff like quality of life features. I'm trying to think of some of the big examples.
A lot of UX design.
Yeah, exactly. And difficulty settings would be an example of approachability. Because the reason why people aren't playing your game is that they're not able to enjoy it at that difficulty. It's not a case of somebody from having an outside issue not being able to play it.
Yeah. Actually, we had this conversation
Mm-hmm.
between a lot of devs and I,
Mm-hmm.
and we were talking about difficulty settings and everything and all this other stuff. And what we kind of decided as a whole is we kind of like it when games only have one difficulty setting, not because we want it to be hard, but because we want a good intended version of the game. They're solid, because like most people don't test when they add in difficulty settings. They just buff or debuff stats, and that's it. Or instead of having difficulty settings, have tunable things like that one game. Was it
Way of the Pacifists? Yes.
Yeah, like either one like solid difficulty level,
Mm-hmm.
which could be not necessarily easy, but not necessarily hard kind of thing, and then or go the way of the pacifist, the way of pacifist. There we go.
Mm-hmm. And again, like the reason for that is about developing and establishing a baseline. It's about understanding, okay, this is my skill floor. This is what I expect players to come into my game and have, and be able to enjoy this game. And if you can't get to that skill floor, you have to either do more to your game, or you're going to have to write people off. And unfortunately, when you write people off, you are cutting a potential segment of your fan base. Some developers don't care about that at all. Stuff like La Mulana, for instance. And what is often the better option is to establish that baseline and then put in things in your game that can allow things to go either down or up. Way of the Pacifist being a really good example, Hades is probably going to be the standout example with its whole, pack of punishment system, as well as God mode, that you can play Hades and play very easily. You can be like me and like the other masochists and go to heat like 32, heat 45 or whatever, and get your face pounded into the dirt by how hard that game can get.
Mm-hmm.
But the point is that it is very approachable.
Yeah, I mean, like RPGs and roguelikes have that, advantage of being able to, level up or get better stuff to make stuff easier as you go, kind of thing.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because that also goes back to Dark Souls, and again about the difficulty walls in that game. One of the reasons why action games are typically more approachable, or more people end up finishing them, is that they can see the path to improvement. This boss does a super strong attack that takes out 75% of my health. How about if I dodge that attack next time? And why games like... One of the reasons why the whole Souls-like genre blew up was this idea of rewarding mastery. That when you beat that boss in a Souls-like, the dopamine levels or the dopamine gets like introduced, or the endorphins, whatever, which one it is, because it is such that cathartic release that you manage to win. When you get stuck in a game and there is no hope, when again you just hit that wall and there is no way to get around it, it's like, why do I want to keep punching or slamming my face into this brick wall?
Of course, depends on the consumers, because like, to me, Dark Souls as a whole is that wall.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like, yeah, it wants me to dodge that. I suck at dodging.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It wants me to do this, and I can't do that. I could sit here for 20 hours and still not be able to do that kind of thing.
And Ryu's point there is a really good one, that, again, accessibility is not the same as approachability. It's not changing how somebody plays their game or changes the gameplay. It just allows them to play the game to begin with. And it's why those features should be standardized at this point. What we're talking about with approachability is trying to make this game as motivating as possible to play through. But therein lies the problem, that people are motivated differently. And like when I'm looking at the results of Dark Souls, like the fact that 45% of the player base, let me get back here. Where is it? Oh, I'm sorry. 39% of the fan base actually beat Champion Gundyr, an optional, incredibly difficult fight. Actually surprised me when I read that stat. And
I
again,
wonder how Sekiro compares to that.
what?
I wonder how Sekiro compares to that.
That is a really good question. And now that Sekiro's on Steam, we can actually look that up. I'm going to make a bet right now. I haven't gotten to the page yet. A whole lot of people quit at the Genshiro fight. Let's see if I'm right. Let's see. Actually, more than I expected. Huh. That's actually surprising. 50% of the people actually beat Genshiro.
Yeah, but how many does it compare to a comparable status to the other one that had the 39%?
Yeah, that's a good question. Let's see.
That's
And then
one.
Here's something interesting. More people at least beat Sekiro, or at least more of the fan base beat Sekiro than they did Dark Souls. 32.5% beat the Aizen fight, or Ishin fight.
I guess it is true that their fan base is full of masochists.
Probably.
The worse the game is, the more people beat it.
I think it's kind of hard to tell. Like, they're not showing me full descriptions. That's interesting. 27.4% beat the super difficult optional fight, the Demon of Hatred. That fight is just 100% optional, and it's a pain in the you-know-what to actually do it. So, again, when you're trying to build your game, this is one of the things that I know the lead designer, I forget his name, of the whole Dark Souls franchise, has said that they don't want difficulty to be kind of, the stumbling block for a lot of people. But therein lies that problem of what is difficult. And this is why, again, like difficulty, we better be careful, as we could go on a whole difficulty rant for the next 40 minutes. But this is why difficulty is very hard to pin down, because some people will say, make the game as hard as possible, and I'm going to love it, and if you dare make anything easy, I'm going to give your game a negative review. But if that sentiment is only 3% of your player base, then you're hurting your game overall.
Mm-hmm. Yep, because but Dark Souls has very much the opposite kind of fan base.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much all their fan base wants it hard.
Yeah. But motivation, bringing this back to kind of the wider topic, hits multiple aspects. And again, storytelling is one that I don't know if... I know for myself, like, I'm not exactly the best guy to talk about this, but I guess for you, Shark, what aspects, when it comes to storytelling or narrative, hook you through a game?
That's really hard to talk about, because it's a really it depends kind of question. But if the story has to feature some really good characters, which people find, different characters, good and bad kind of thing. I know, in the original Final Fantasy VII, the remake doesn't exist kind of thing. Like in the original Final Fantasy VII, I love Tifa, love Cloud, love Barret, love Red, 13, I think it was, or was it 7? No, it was 13. I loved, Sid was all right. Vincent was cool. Not great, but cool. But Yuffie, she annoyed the piss out of me. Every time she came in there and stole all my freaking material, which was like 3 or 4 times, it's like, why have you guys not realized this? And it's just annoying that you have to go on a quest to get your tank materia back. And like she was so annoying, and she was my least favorite part of that story. The characters is definitely a big part of that, kind of thing. Like having characters that you enjoy, kind of thing, which is a very subjective thing.
Mhm.
And I mean, the same thing goes with anime and TV shows and all this other stuff, all this other kind of like media where you consume it as a story kind of thing.
Mhm.
You want to enjoy the characters kind of thing. Like if everybody hated what's his name that was the Brian for Brian Cranford or whatever his name is for Breaking Bad.
Mhm.
Breaking Bad would have failed very horribly,
Mhm.
but everybody liked him, and everybody talks about him more than they talk about the actual show kind of thing.
Mhm.
And because of that, that was allowed the story to come across in a good way kind of thing. So
Mhm.
like having good characters is definitely key to that, and good characterization of that of the good characters, because when you don't have
Mhm.
that's like I really like Dragon Ball Z, the original Dragon Ball Z, but the Dragon Ball Super that came after that, where Goku was flip flopping. One time, half of the time he'd be, part of the time he'd be, kind of the regular Goku kind of thing, and the other part, a lot of people called it as stupid Goku. Where he would just completely brain fart and just like purposely sabotage everything. It's like, are you sure you're not the villain of this?
Mhm.
Of this, and like he would purposely sabotage everything. It is like, Goku never did that in the original, and like they just really screwed up his characterization. They screwed up the characterization of a lot of characters and just really messed it up, kind of thing. They did the same thing in Dragon Ball GT,
Mm.
although they did it to a lesser extent than they did it in Super. But like characterization is very, very key. It's not all of it, but having good characters
Mhm.
that people like, kind of thing, or love to hate, because that's another thing, is you need your villains to be loved to, you want your villains to be loved to hate, kind of thing.
Mhm.
Like like, man, this guy is so evil, like I really want to just beat the heck out of him, because like there is, like nothing I want to see more than him get his comeuppance.
Mhm.
You want to see him get his comeuppance, rather than these like generic, oh, I've taken the crystal and now I'm, master of everything, suck on it, and that's the entire characterization. It's like, I don't care if he loses. I just want the heroes to win because I like the heroes, kind of thing. I don't give a dang about him because, like, yeah, he's generic. I just want to see him lose because the heroes should win, kind of thing. And like that's one of the big keys of it, and that's the one really quantifiable thing that I can say.
Mhm.
But the I guess the other quantifiable thing I could say would be like, you need a certain amount of plot twist.
Mhm.
Games need games, anime, TV shows. They need plot twists. They need things to be unexpected. They need these ups and downs, because if you're just steady, kind of thing,
Mhm.
then everyone will lose interest, kind of thing. And it doesn't matter which way it is, because even if it's just steady, like hardcore drama kind of thing,
Mhm.
just this bad thing happens and then this bad thing happens and then this bad thing happens, you know if they're just equally bad, then it's just going to be like, this is just the same as what was normally happening. This is
Mhm.
nothing new, I don't care, kind of thing. You've got to have ups and downs in your story, to make it have effect, like with the
Mhm.
word of the day, chromasia, kind of thing. We got to get that in there. In that, I balanced the, where my upsides were with the comedy, with
Mhm.
Rocky being a complete dumbass all the way throughout, kind of thing. He was just, just dumbing things up, and it was hilarious, kind of thing. And that was like, what led to the upsides. Then it was followed by the downsides of racism, a genocide, death of all these different characters. Like the death count, by the time you get to that end of the game, there's 9 endings to that game, and 7 of them, 50% or.
Are we still live right now?
We are on my side.
Test. Am I still on here? Okay, I think we're back. Yeah, OBS cut out for a second there. Okay, I think we're back. Yeah,
but like it's a kind of seesaw kind of thing. Like if you're not seesawing in your story with your emotions, aka emotion roller coaster kind of thing, if you're not going up and down with that, then you're telling a really dull story. Like, I mean, you could keep on go down. You could go down in progression. Like, something bad happens, and then something a lot worse happens, and then something a lot worse happens. But you'll eventually come to the point where there's nothing worse, and at that point, you've already dragged your player into heavy depression, and they don't want to continue with your game.
Yeah, and as you're describing like good characterization, this is one of the hallmarks of the Yakuza franchise. That the Yakuza games have always been built as a very interesting offshoot of RPG design. That it's a game that has a lot of the storytelling kind of slower pace of an RPG, but that is interspersed with all the crazy side quests, side stories, and of course the combat system. And everyone fell in love with Kiryu as the main character. And then, instead, as you said about having someone you love to hate, Majima became kind of the fan favorite, so much so that he became a playable character in Yakuza 0. And one of the fascinating things was just about how successful Yakuza 0 was, not only in terms of revitalizing the whole brand, but being a second restart to get people into that franchise. Because when 0 came out, they were already on their 5th entry in the series. And it was okay, but it didn't really have that huge bit of fandom. But 0 really did light a fire under the studio to keep things going.
Yeah, like the characterization is just very, very key to if you don't have good characters, nothing else in your story matters. Like if you have a Farmer Mike and who is just this boring farmer who just walks around farming, and you have this I don't know, postal worker Tom, and then you have all these other characters. There's nothing interesting about those characters. They're just normal workers kind of thing. It's like, so where's the interesting story? I mean, it's not saying that you can't make characters around that concept, but they can't be just that. I mean, they maybe the what did I say? What was the first one? What was my first generic character? Was
Farmer Tom or something?
Postal worker Tom, I think. So like, he could be really interesting by making him a drug addict kind of thing, and he's out there delivering mail and everything, but he's stopping delivering his mail on these mail routes to get drugs and everything, and then you're sitting there dealing with that, and then he turns to crime and everything and starts killing people, and then you end up with your main character coming along, and you've got to stop him, kind of thing.
And bringing us back to the entire to the greater conversation, one of the challenges you have to run into, of course, again, is what is attracting people to your game. Because we saw this with like Neo versus Neo 2. That Neo 2, from a gameplay standpoint, is a better game. From a story and characterization standpoint, is a worse game. because your main character really serves no purpose to that plot. And again, there's a whole discussion about the difference between the plot and the world or lore building of a game. For instance, Half-Life has a pretty good kind of sense of world building to it, but not the best characterization for Gordon Freeman.
I mean, he's got a crowbar
and a suit.
Yeah, that's all the characterization you need.
Mm-hmm. And again, like Devil May Cry would be another really good example of having solid characterization, or when work with Dante and not a DMC Devil May Cry.
Yeah, like the like Devil like Dante from Devil May Cry 3 was just amazing characterization. They just characterized the whole living crap out of him and his brother, and the other characters in there. Like there was just so much characterization in there. And Devil May Cry 3 was way, way too hard. But I started off on the, well, I didn't start off. I after realizing how hard it was, I ended up going to the easy difficulties, beating the game, and I was so enthralled with all the story and the characters and everything that I played it through again at the next difficulty level, beat all that. Then I went back through and played it again on the normal difficulty, beat all that. Then I went back through on the next hardest one, beat all that. And then I went through on the hardest, and I got about halfway through before I think my PlayStation fried. But I'm sure I would have beat that one too, and would have completely conquered that game had my PlayStation not failed.
Yeah.
But the characterization in that was totally on point. But that game was way too dang hard. The normal should have been hard. Matter of fact, I think it basically, from the stories I heard, is basically the normal was the hard. Because everybody complained about how easy Devil May Cry 2 was, so they went and be like, yeah, we'll whatever we'll set for our normal difficulty, we'll take that and we'll ramp it up to hard, and then we'll call that the easiest mode, and then every mode after that will get even harder.
And yeah, they had to change it, I think, for the special edition too, in terms of how the difficulties work.
Oh, did they?
Yeah. And to Ryu's comment about single player, about MMOs and such, that takes me to the other aspect of motivation, and that is for people who like to explore games. And this is kind of different from the storytelling point of view. This is just kind of people who really like to get into a game and learn all there is about it. And we've seen people who play MMOs who play just to go from one area to the next and just, look through everything that this game has to offer.
Yeah. And, one game that I really like the way they did exploring is the Trail series. Because they didn't just be like, hey, just go out there and find it, whatever you want to do, kind of thing. They're like, here's a quest board, that is going to tell you exactly where this content is. You can take the quest and go out there and find it, kind of thing. You're exploring, but it's telling you where to explore at, and then you go in there and you find all that content. And not only that, but that side content isn't just side content. It's content that is 100% optional, but it actually attaches to the rest of the story. And it makes sense to, in every way, kind of thing. It's like this stuff could have been mainline content, kind of thing, unskippable content. But it wasn't. It was optional exploring content that really, built the world and made things feel alive, kind of thing. Brought the world to life.
Yeah, and that was what we were talking about when Silas was on, about that chart with the 4 types of gamers, or 4 kind of core aspects of motivation. And again, everybody is different in this aspect. Yeah, there's power, exploration, social. Yeah, I forget what the last one is myself. But again, with the kind of this overall discussion, it is very hard sometimes to know what aspect of your game people are really going to gravitate towards. Again, this is what playtesting can certainly help out with. But you have to be thinking about what is the purpose of playing my game and what helps and what distracts from that. Like, if your game is meant to tell an emotionally driven story and you fill that with Kaizo level platforming, that may be a little bit of a contradiction there.
Mm-hmm. It very much is, because like the story people want to experience the story.
Mm-hmm.
The Kaizo people want to enjoy masochism, which is like the opposite of story.
Mm-hmm.
So
And
you don't want to do that kind of thing. It's like oh, what would be a good example? It's like people who like swimming kind of thing. And you're like, here's a swimming pool filled with lava. Have fun. And the other people, you know, like suffering, but they like suffering on land. So it's like, yeah, this sucks for both of them, you know? It's like, yeah, that lava could give me a suffering, but like, I don't like being wet.
I have not played a Jedi Fallen Order yet. So unfortunately, I don't know much about that one. Yeah. And again, if there are elements that distract from your main motivation, people aren't going to stick around. And this is often why we see that's another reason for this burnout rate for a lot of games. That one of the reasons why, again, like games like Dark Souls, Sekiro, and so on, do retain their fan base to some extent is because they know who their fans are. They know if somebody gets stuck at the Gentro fight in Sekiro, most likely you're going to push through until you beat that. Did that work for everybody? Definitely no. But they understand what their fans want. And again, this is what makes it so difficult, is that there is a give and take. That yes, you want to appeal to your fans, but at the same time, you also want to appeal to newcomers. Would that be considered safely extreme?
Yep. That's the reason why when I did testing on my game, the word of the day, what I did is like I tested with the hardcore players of tactical RPGs, as well as new players that either did not like the genre or didn't like turn-based or did not never played it kind of thing. So I wanted to see if I could, I was doing my best to appeal to both of them at the same time kind of thing, which is, both hard and easy to do at the same time. It's simply extreme. Basically, it's hard because the fact is one of them wants it really hard and one of them wants it really easy kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But when you find that middle ground where the hard or like the hardcore are like it's too easy and the newbies are like it's too hard kind of thing, I think you're kind of in the right place kind of thing. Especially when as a developer you're sort of medium kind of thing to it and you're like it's good, I can make it through properly kind of thing. And that's where a little bit developer testing alongside of the player testing comes in handy. But you need to, get it to where, that's but like the easy part and also hard part, another easy and / hard part is that UX design. UX design is very easy to realize that UX design is one thing that will help both new and existing players, but it'll help more new players than it will the old player, the experienced player, because the experienced players, they already have experience playing these kinds of games. They don't need any fancy UX to figure it out, kind of thing. Where new players definitely need new and better fancy UX to help them get into the game better.
Yeah.
But doing good UX design isn't easy. So that's where it gets hard. It's easy to find out where to improve. It's not easy to find out, easy to actually implement.
Mm-hmm. And that gets at kind of this debate about what makes a game successful in this aspect. Because you can have a game like you have a brutally difficult game such as Dark Souls, La Mulana, that has a very hardcore fan base. But in like La Mulana's case, I think there's like 400 or 500 reviews on Steam, but everyone really loved that game. Versus a game that, let's say, only 20-30% of people actually beat it, but it got 10-20,000 reviews on Steam.
Mm-hmm.
And again, success is another topic altogether. That's definitely too big to get into tonight. But yeah, something like Celeste, even though so few of its fan base actually finished that game were motivated to do it, will be considered a success commercially. But the problem, and kind of what I want to say about this topic, is that if you don't understand what aspects of your game are good, what are bad, then you're just kind of firing in the dark when it comes to releasing your video games.
Yeah. And to Ryu's question, yeah, better UX is better for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But it's mostly better for new players.
Yeah.
Because it's more important for new players because it helps them get into the game easier.
Yeah.
It'll, streamline things for your old players, but it'll help new players get into your game better. Which you're comparing, somebody that's already a fan of your stuff, liking you just a little bit better, versus somebody who's not into your new stuff, liking you a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
That's a major difference right there.
And like we've said, many people will internalize pain points or they'll just learn to live with it. But those issues aren't the reason why somebody plays your game. And for somebody new, it's going to distract them. It's going to demotivate them from trying to enjoy your title and why you want to get rid of them whenever you can. But again,
I go on a rant right now about pain points.
Mm-hmm. But again, the problem, of course, is trying to figure out what aspects are core to your game and what aspects are either in the way or just supplemental to that. Like we said, if you're marketing your game as a engrossing story-driven game, but you also feature 20 different horrible stealth sections and driving segments, is that stuff really helping your game? Some people will argue, well, if I put more content in my game, surely it must be better. But, like we said, that doesn't work.
Now, if that stuff was optional, that would probably work. But having it required, yeah, that's not a good thing. Like, if you're putting the driving and all this other stuff as optional, then the players can be like, oh, that's interesting. I'll go do that kind of thing. And it would be better because it would be more that they could enjoy. Where if it's required, then they ain't got a choice. They hate driving? Well, suck it up.
Like the Mafia game. I think it was the first Mafia that had a racing section that was horrible, and it was required to actually get back to the main story.
And I bet you the drop-off rate there is really high.
Mm-hmm. And again, this is why you need to be really careful with what aspects of your game are supposed to be the hook of it. Because we've played games that it could be a really good story or really good gameplay, and then you come to that one annoyance that just completely breaks the entire game for you, and then the game basically burns out all of its goodwill.
Yeah, I remember this game that I was given for somebody on the Discord kind of thing, and it was a really fun RPG and everything. And then I got to this point where I'm arbitrarily supposed to click at random points and try to find hotspots, but the hotspots change every time I click. So I have to go and just click. and it never even really taught me how to even work it, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It just gave me some arbitrary instructions. Find the hot spot, and then like you're hot, and then like I click, just a smidge away. Oh, you're freezing cold, and I just click all around that area, and like like it's just I'm freezing cold, freezing cold, freezing cold, freezing cold, and then all of a sudden, I'm right in the middle of all those places, and it's like I'm hot. It's like that thing's moving, isn't it? That hot point is moving it. So I have to find a random spot on the screen that has no tells and click on it. Click on this circle that you cannot see on the screen. It's like having an invisible link somewhere on a YouTube channel, and it's moves around every time you click, but you got to click that link.
And let me see. Time-wise, I think we're getting right up to it. One point that I want to talk about, I think this will be my overall final point, and I'll throw over to you, is that for people who like challenge, there will always be a section of your fan base who will go all in. They're the ones who are, I will 100% this game, or I will like 99.9% try and do it. And these are the people who will try to get everything done. Like, there are people probably playing Spelunky 2 right now who are going for, the complete achievement list on it. And for them, like, when you get to that point of player, that point of motivation, it's not really about the gameplay, at least not in the grand scheme of things. It's about trying to, master this game. It's about saying, I have demolished this title.
I've crowned my Fuji.
Yes, exactly. And for them, again, while you can certainly have those Grandmaster challenges, you need to be very concerned or very alertive or attentive about who my audience is for this game. Because there will always be people who will want to master your title. Again, the whole going back to the start of this stream with Smash Brothers, that Smash Brothers was not meant to be a competitive fighting game. That's not what Nintendo aimed the market for. And that market grew in spite of that. And now Nintendo is trying to, square that circle of casual and hardcore fans. But you have to be very alert about, yes, there are Grandmaster plays in my game, but if that only accommodates 0.05% of the people who bought my game, do I really want to commit or change my game to appease them?
Yeah, and I would say no.
Mm-hmm. And ultimately, again, not everybody is going to love your game. As I've said this before, a game that appeals to nobody, or a game that appeals to everybody, is a game that appeals to nobody. But some people will take that as me contradicting this whole idea of onboarding and approachability. The point about approachability and UI and UX design is you want to hedge your bet in terms of people experiencing your game. You could potentially have somebody who will become a hardcore fan of you and your title completely get turned away and get demotivated because of bad design. And if you do approach your game from that, you should always approach your game first from your fans, but then you should look into the grander scheme of things for UI UX. Because, as I've said, there are people who will genuinely want to become a fan of your game, but then say, I don't want to play, this is annoying, why do I want to keep playing this? And once you've demotivated somebody, they're never coming back.
Yep. And let me tell you, if you have a fan base and you're just catering to them, they're not going to be around there forever.
Yep.
They're going to say you got 1 million people as a fan base kind of thing, and you just cater to them, and you basically prevent anybody else from entering kind of thing. People will try to enter and they'll exit right away kind of thing. And that fan base, it's 1 million now, but your next game it's 900,000. Your next game is 800,000, 700, 600, 500, 300, 200, 100, 50K, 3K, 1K. And, unless you saved a lot of money in the first few, you went out of business back at like the 50K mark, if not before that.
Mm-hmm. And if you're not growing your fan base, that also presents another problem. You try to grow your game. Because if you say, okay, this game sold 50,000 copies, and now I want to make a game that sells 200,000 copies, and I'm going to put all this extra time and money and effort into it. If you don't know why people played your game, or you cause people to bounce off of your previous game, you're not necessarily going to grow your audience with that second title.
You're going to shrink it.
Mm-hmm.
You're just catering to that fan base.
And again, you're not learning why people played your game in the first place, or why they stopped playing your game in the first place. Mm-hmm. And this, I think, is a very salient point. Like, going back to Celeste, I'm going to be very curious, like, whatever their next game is, as to, one, how many people are going to buy that, and what the completion rate of that game is going to be.
Yeah.
And as the opposite example, or, a good example, this would be Ori. That when I looked at the completion rates of Ori and the Will of the Wisps versus, Ori and the Blind Forest is this first or the second game?
I think that's the first.
Ori and the Blind Forest was the first game. Ori and the Will was the second game. The second game had a higher completion rating than the first game. That's good. That's what you want to see. You want to see more people be able to experience your game rather than less.
Mm-hmm. And, I haven't played the second one, but I would hope they have improved, made it, more user-friendly.
Mm-hmm.
Made it, not necessarily easier, but easier to get in there. You know what I mean? Easier to, because like I made it a certain part and then I, hit the wall.
Mm-hmm.
I got stuck, to a place where I could not progress, kind of thing. And I hope that, and I cannot remember why I got stuck. I think it might have been either I was lost or there was some kind of power that I didn't have and I couldn't progress and I didn't know where to get that power from.
Mm-hmm.
But, I was stuck. Yep. And there was no way that I could figure to get past it, kind of thing. And that's where they lost me, kind of thing. And, I really, really wanted to finish that game. Josh knows that because, like, I was the one that convinced him to play it.
Yeah. And to give you a little bit of analytics, Ori and the Blind Forest, the Definitive Edition, has about 33,000 reviews on Steam. Ori and the Will the Wisp, Will the Wisp has about 35, maybe like 36,000 reviews on Steam. So that's an example of a game getting better with its sequels. And again, and like we've said, there is always going to be a limit on the number of people who are going to play your game. It's not going to be like I will get 10 billion people eventually to buy my games. But ultimately, the goal of all what we talk about is you want to guarantee as many eyes and as many people interested in playing your game as possible. You want somebody to leave your game happy. You don't want them to leave your game being pissed off. Because if they do, why would they come back for your next game?
Exactly. And to David's point, Ori's an ugly game, right, Josh?
Yeah, of course.
It's like the ugliest one out there.
Call of Duty has better aesthetics, right?
Yeah. And, that's kind of the minimum you have to make as an indie developer. You got to be better than Ori, because that's such an ugly game. Mm-hmm. You got to be better than that.
Of course. But I do have to get going in the next few minutes. So Do you have any final points or topics regarding motivation?
Huh. Not particularly. No, I don't.
Let's see. Will said, "Isn't there a bit of conundrum that today's market might be able to polarize an audience?" Yeah, we have seen developers really try to push a certain angle or certain stance to try and either be controversial or kind of stand out. And this is kind of what we saw with The Last of Us 2, with all the debates and hoopla over that one.
Yeah, that's more of a marketing thing than anything else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And again, you have to, like, marketing PR, that is another topic easily. But when you're trying to motivate somebody to play through a game, you have to present your best foot forward. And this is often why, like, for myself, I say that you have about 15 to 30 minutes to convince me to play your game. I don't care what that genre is, I don't care how long you spent on that game. The second I start playing your game, the timer begins to count down. And if you can't convince me at the end of 30 minutes or the end of a stream to keep playing your game, I'm done. And I've said this before, that there are plenty of games that the second I quit that game, I know I'm not going to go back to it, because why should I go back to it?
And that's you're basically describing Dismantled right there.
Mm-hmm.
Because once you quit that game, you ain't going back to it.
And again, this is not the same as replayability, as in returning to a game for different experiences or keep playing it again and again. This is just simply getting somebody to play your game and keep playing it.
Yeah. Or even replaying it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which is, sounds like for playability, but it's not technically, because like RPGs don't have replayability for the most part.
It's ultimately about
people, if it's good ones, they will go back and replay them.
Ultimately, are the main point for this entire discussion is, how do you convince somebody that when they turn your game off for the night or the day or whenever they're finished, to come back the next day or even the next week and start your game up again?
Yeah, and that's a hard one.
Yeah.
Very hard to do.
And it's like we said, when somebody ends your game negatively or ends that night playing it negatively, most likely they're not going to come back to it.
Yep, there's many games that I've gotten pissed off at, and turned it off and never went back to.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter how big your marketing budget is, if you have the most famous actors and actresses playing your game. When somebody decides that your game is done, your game is done. It doesn't matter if it happened 10 hours, 100 hours, or 10 minutes, or even 10 seconds into your game.
Yeah.
And like we've said,
keep in mind, it doesn't even have to be a bad experience. It could end on a meh experience, or it's all right, or it's good, but it's not as good as I was hoping it to be, kind of thing. And they turn it off, and they may not come back. It doesn't even have to be a bad experience.
And that is even more prevalent today with refunds. That if I end your game under 2 hours and it's just like, I played it was a video game, I can return that game. And I can return that game with very little fuss. This isn't like the old days where you had to, convince the employee at GameStop, that there's something wrong with this game.
Yeah. I returned so many games to GameStop.
Yeah, I had people like argue with me about why do I want to return this game. Like with Steam, it's just basically, is it under 2 hours? Yeah, here, just take it back. Okay, here's your money, and we're done.
Yeah, and if it's over 2 hours, tell us why.
Yeah. And
which ironically, with Dystopia, or Dismantled rather, I was like 2 hours and like 36 seconds or something. I was like, son of a 30 seconds too late. 37 seconds too late.
Yep. And I know Nintendo, yeah, and that's going to be a factor because another point about this, again, like this goes into the marketing, is that you have to get your foot in the door to begin with. And then the motivation or these aspects keep them in. It keeps them engaged. Like, and I keep saying my final point, but this will seriously be it, and I have to get going.
Your final.
Exactly, like the final boss. That you are never going to have a game that has 100% completion. 100% of your audience is going to beat your game. Doesn't matter anything about it. Your goal through all this is you want as many people to play through your game. Because some people will say, yes, this game sold 50,000 copies. It is a, smashing success. But if only 1,000 of those people actually played more than 50% of your game, that's kind of a problem. Because you know that on their next game, instead of growing that audience, it may shrink, like Shark said. It may go from 50,000 to 35,000. And then 35 to 29. And if you don't understand why there is a decline or why there's an incline, you are just firing shots in the dark and hoping that my next game will be a Game of the Year winner. Or my next game will only have 100 copies sold.
Well, I disagree with you what you said about, never could have 100% beat your game. Because you can. I mean, like, you can make a game where you start the menu and that's beating the game. Once you get into the menu, once you get load the start menu, that's the end of the game. Thank
Speed
you for playing.
strats right there.
You can get 100% clear rate at that rate. You could also have a game like an infinite game, like a card game kind of thing, where beating the game is playing one match kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you officially beat the game at that point.
Yeah. And some people, I actually almost forgot this point, but going back to the competitive aspect, some people will play like multiplayer games for that thrill of competing. That it's no longer really about the game, it's about proving that you are the best player, or that there's always somebody else to beat. And
the best ever was.
Exactly. And this is, I think, again, like another final point. Multiplayer engagement and single player engagement are two distinct categories. And as a developer, you need to be really careful about that. In terms of, is my audience about the single player experience, or is it about the multiplayer experience? Because if you focus on the wrong track, it's going to kill your game. Like we saw in Marvel's Avengers. That a lot of people play Marvel's Avengers single player. They don't care about the multiplayer. But that's where developers kind of try to hedge their bet on. And again, goes back to trying to appeal to everyone. Because typically, if your game is incredibly strong single player, people don't want to play multiplayer, and vice versa. Like we saw with Doom Eternal. That the developers put a lot of time, effort, and marketing in that whole battle mode feature, and only 2.5% of the audience on Steam played more than 20 matches of it.
That's the reason why, in general, you want to make your game either single player or multiplayer, and not both.
Mm-hmm. And somebody will probably argue Dark Souls, and Dark Souls is kind of the cheat because it's kind of drop in, drop out multiplayer. That it's not really a separate way of playing the game.
Yeah.
But that does it for me. So, anything you want to end on, Shark?
Give your games motivation to actually play them. Do not derp your UX. Do not make your UX as smooth as possible. Make sure that you have ways that you really appeal to your players, such as story or gameplay, whatever way it is. And make sure you don't have any low points. make sure you avoid those kind of thing. Make sure you don't throw in like 500 genres in there to mismatch kind of thing. You want to make the most cool, like you can make something really cool when you blend genres kind of thing, and you could blend 15 genres or something, and you could make something really, really amazing. But that really, really amazing thing is probably going to have a really, really insane scope that you'll really never be able to do, unless you half-ass or like 1/4 ass all of them, and then you end up with a really shitty game.
Yeah.
It's if you're an indie and you're pretty much, if you're listening to this podcast, probably what you need to be focusing on is a single genre and make that genre the best you can. Do original and different stuff in that genre, your twist kind of thing that makes it really, really different, but yet the same. And specialize in that.
Yeah.
It's simply extreme.
Just specialize in a very general aspect and you'll be successful.
Basically. Well, I'm not saying only make that one kind of game, but I mean, that is a strategy you could follow. But I would, just take a game and put your twist on it, make it different, and make it pop, and make sure that you do every part of that in a way that you avoid pain points and you really hook the player.
Yep.
And that will encourage higher finish rate.
Yep. And if you allow more people to play your game or be interested in it, it will ultimately give you a greater chance of success. And not just success with one game, but success with your next game and your game after that. Because ultimately, if you want to succeed in this industry, you need to grow and be, put out more games that more people play them. And
although getting more people to play is in turn going to lower down your ratios there for completion and whatnot.
Yeah.
But it's going to be more sales, which gets you more money. And in the end, that's what you need to be able to keep on doing this kind of thing. So, like, while you're appealing to more audience and getting more sales and getting a lower ratio, that is fine, kind of thing. Like, because it's not all about the ratio. It's about basically making the best game you can and, make a best solid experience. And if that solid experience is so good that the hardcore people really like it, and it brings in, I guess you'd call them softcore people kind of thing, that don't complete it kind of thing, but they enjoy the game kind of thing. They may eventually become hardcore players, or either way they're becoming sales, and they may continue to become sales because they enjoyed it, even though they didn't complete it kind of thing. Because completion is not the whole factor of enjoyment, because there's many people who never completed a game that really love that game.
Yep.
And you want to encourage that love. You want to give them the best experience as you can to encourage that love, which will encourage them to keep on coming back. Yeah. Because if you go to the grocery store and you're treated really nicely kind of thing by these people, and they're really friendly and whatnot, you want to go back. But if you come in there and these guys are like cursing you out and be like, hurry up and get your damn stuff, and get the heck out of here, you're not going to want to go back to that place.
Yeah. Ultimately,
returning customers.
And like we said, ultimately your goal is you want as many eyes on your game as you can, and you want people to leave your game happy or at least content. You want them to feel like they got something out of your game. And if you can't do that, then you're not going to grow a fan base.
You're going to shrink a fan base that's already there or not there, and then you have nothing.
Yeah. But that is going to be, I think, our final point for today. I didn't think this topic would go on as long, but I think it went pretty well.
the final
Yeah.
topic. Point.
But thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I hope you were motivated to watch this, or at least watch one of the sections of the show. As always, if you want to follow me, I am on Twitter at GWBicer, and there are links to my Discord and Patreon in the description down below, as well as to my books on design.
And you can follow me at Nexus Games INC1. And, you can, my links to Discord and Twitter and such are below. And as well as to my YouTube channel, which you may or may not be on. You may be on Josh's YouTube channel. You may be on mine watching this. Either way, links to everything is down below in both of ours.
Mm-hmm. So everyone, have a great rest of your night, and of course, have hopefully a safe and great Thanksgiving this week as well.
Indeed.
But we will be back next Sunday around 4:30 for our live show. I will be back regularly for our nightly streams around 9:30 for GameWise, and come back for daily discussions on game design here and on game wisdom, where is in the art and science of games. And for you, Shark, when can people watch your game dev and regular streams?
Well, you can watch my game dev streams on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
You can watch the Safeway Stream podcast on my channel on Sundays, of course. Same time, same place, or different place, rather. And you can watch my game streams on Tuesdays. All of the times are at 2 o'clock, except for the Safeway Stream podcast, which is whenever Josh gets ready.
Exactly.
Which is normally around 3:20ish.
All right. Mm-hmm. All right, and also as a special reminder for those of you watching this live right now, our next roundtable discussion with Tomo, Jack, and we may even get Ramin, and maybe a full house, is going to be this Tuesday. That is the 24th, around 7:30, 8 p.m. ET.
Yeah, looking forward to that.
All right, but that will do it. So everybody, have a great rest of your night, and come back for daily discussions on game design here and on game wisdom, where it's in the art and science of games. Until next time, take care.